Today we are going to be covering digital portfolio management and what's new in the Xanadu release. We have a full session packed today where we're going to give a brief overview of digital portfolio management as well as cover the key highlights that got released with our family release and over the past few store releases. So I'm gonna start with our safe harbor notice, as we might talk about any future innovations that are not currently live under GA, but are planned for the future scope of the product. As everybody knows, the product roadmaps change and they evolve pretty frequently, and especially given the today's pace of change, we do want to provide a vision and direction where we are headed with the solution, but ultimately, if you are a decision maker or a buyer, please do not make any purchasing decisions solely based on the contents of today's webinar. But I'm going to promise the session is going to be pretty compelling and exciting. And now I'm going to jump into the agenda that we have planned for today. So the key topics that we'll be covering today is, of course, I'm going to introduce the entire DPM team that's on the call today, as well as people who are working behind the scenes, getting the solution out there for everyone. And then we're going to jump on to the product overview. We'll give some historical context behind DPM, the key personas that it caters to, any major capabilities that are there, and the pain points that it resolves for our customers. And then we'll share the Xanadu release highlights before we jump onto the demo by the team, like of all the new enhancements that are there. So we could just gonna do a few housekeeping items before we start. We encourage everyone to please add in your questions using the Q&A button that's present in your Zoom meeting bar. And we'll be monitoring that and we'll try to answer questions as we move along the different sections that we have planned for the day. And we'll also have like a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the session if you have questions which are unrelated with the sections as we go along. And we'll also be sharing today's recording on ServiceNow community, along with a few more resources that can help you jumpstart your DPM journey. And post the event is closed, you'll be prompted to fill out a brief survey through which we can assess and gather your feedback and enhance these sessions, as well as the product for our future upcoming releases. So I'm just gonna do a brief round of intros. Today on the call, we have a full house with PMs and software engineers joining in, and I let them introduce themselves. Caitlin, we can start with you.
Hi, hello everybody. It's so great to be here with you. My name is Caitlin Morse, and I am one of the product managers for digital portfolio management. We also, this team, I should say, is also responsible for service portfolio management and service builder. And we've been working in this space for quite a while. We're really excited to hear your questions and really great to hear some of the discussion going on today.
Thanks, Caitlin. Isaac, can you go ahead?
Hi, Isaac Bartz. Happy to be here. I'm also on the DPM Service Builder and Service Portfolio Management product team. So hope to share some exciting news with you today about the roadmap. I'm joining from Bentonville, Arkansas.
Thanks, Isaac. And Nikita, that's me. I'm an outbound PM on the DPM team, and I work pretty closely with Isaac, Caitlin, and everybody else on the team to present the events and the go-to-market for DPM and few other products. Passing it over to you, Shubham.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I am one of the product managers on digital portfolio management. Along with this, I also look after vendor management workspace as part of my portfolio. Happy and excited to share what's new in Xanadu. Looking forward to this.
Awesome. And then my name is Aaron Guzman. I'm one of the engineers for DPM, Service Builder, and SPM. Yeah, excited to show off all the work that our team did for Xanadu.
Thanks, Aaron, for wrapping it up. And we'll move it along. So today we are going to be talking about digital portfolio management. It's a unified workspace for all the solution owners out there to visualize their services, business applications, and application services about all of them that they own or care about. It helps the stakeholders in managing their solutions more effectively by offering insights into the performance and health of their assets, thereby facilitating better strategic alignment and execution. So DPM was first launched as part of the ITSM standards queue in San Diego family release. And post that, we have had multiple family plus store releases throughout which we have continued to innovate on the product, incorporate the different customer feedback that we've received in those enhancements. The latest version of DPM is currently available on ServiceNow Store for download and installation. And with that in mind, I'm going to launch our first poll of the day to get to know everyone's awareness about DPM and its value. And yep, should have your poll on the screen right now. We'd love to hear what everyone's awareness is right now of DPM, just to get a hold of what the audience is so that we can cater the content accordingly. Okay, I'm gonna have the poll up for another 20 seconds.
Looks like we have quite a good range so far. So there's a bunch who are not aware at all. So we're really excited to get the opportunity to share that with you, as well as some awareness, but not quite sure of the value. So hoping we can maybe touch on some of those points throughout this presentation as well. And then aware but facing challenges. So please do put those questions or anything in the chat. We have an all-star team here that can try to help answer some of those questions.
And it's great to see that people are already realizing value from the product. It's always nice to see the outcomes being achieved by our customers. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Caitlin, and end the poll. And yep. And okay, passing it over to you, Caitlin, to start us off with the product overview.
Perfect, thank you. So this product has been in the works for quite a while. It started off with a pretty in-depth research study that lasted, dedicated research for probably close to a year. There was a ton of interviews, discovery sessions that we did, concept testing. And one of the main questions that we wanted to get more clarity around was this relationship between owning a service and an application, and the types of people who were involved in that ownership, what some of those challenges were, how they were using ServiceNow today or not, and some of the key pain points that they were experiencing when interacting with our products, specifically around service portfolio management and application portfolio management, which is now being referred to as enterprise architecture. So this research led us into really understanding this persona of a service owner and application owner. Could you go to the next slide, Nikita? And what we found was that there are individuals who will go by very different, they'll wear different hats, and they might call themselves a service owner, they might call themselves a service delivery manager, or an application owner, or more of like a business owner or a product line lead. There's a lot of different terms that were used throughout our research. And so what we wanted to do was kind of set some of those terms or labels aside and think about, well, what are these people actually doing? And are they doing a lot of the same kinds of tasks and activities? So we're using this term solution as more of an archetype or an umbrella to represent this key persona that we really honed in on. And so when we talk about a service owner, a solution owner, excuse me, we're talking about somebody who has accountability for at least one service, application, product, or higher level like grouping or product line. And they have that accountability through the entire life cycle of those services, applications, products. So they care about the planning, the build, the run, and continual improvement, of their solutions. And so they're thinking about a lot of different things, and they have a lot of different responsibilities. This is some of those key responsibilities that we wanted to focus on. One of them was translating the needs of the business into an actionable roadmap, understanding the operational performance and health of the things that they were providing and delivering. They wanted to constantly prove the value of what they were providing, either internally or externally. And they really needed to manage the needs of those customers and stakeholders to make sure they were continuing to deliver something, that was of use and that customers were really getting value out of. And then they're always looking to innovate, as technology changes, as new solutions are introduced, how are they taking that into account and making sure that what is being provided is the latest and greatest and it's, on trend and still relevant, so to speak. So if we go to the next slide, in talking with these individuals, there are a lot of pain points that they experienced. So this is more of a thematic representation of those pain points. Not an exhaustive list, but generally speaking, when we talked to owners and they talked about what it meant to own something, there was really no single place that they had to go to see their services or applications or products and other individual service applications and products. There was no central place. So a lot of examples we saw were like OneNotes and SharePoint sites and Word documents and Excel files, a lot of different formats to capture information about like the definition of what that is. And it was really not being kind of defined and managed in like a system of record. So when we talked to those customers, like that was a real pain point for them. And then when we think about ServiceNow in particular, there are different products that serve services and then different products that serves applications. And so even if somebody was saying, hey, I own the service and the application, right? Like I own the application and the support of that application, they would have to go to two different places to even see those things, even though they're so closely coupled and interrelated. And then using a bunch of different tools to get insights. We often heard about teams that basically they would have monthly or quarterly reviews. The teams would extract data from different systems. They'd come into a meeting room, they'd review the data, but there was a lot of, struggle around having a source of truth. Different people had different numbers. It caused a lot of confusion and some complication, in how you're measuring and assessing how well something is doing and also how you're planning the backlog and creating a roadmap. So it led to a lot of silos and how different teams were planning and working, and lack of visibility, across the organization and having like a consistent framework for how to do this kind of stuff. And then when asked, why aren't you using ServiceNow? There's a lot of great data in the tool already around your services and apps. The feedback was, it's really complicated to set a lot of this stuff up, and then actually getting visibility and the kind of visibility that they were craving would require a lot of custom effort to create and then maintain. And so it didn't make sense, in the current status of what was available across the platform. And so we found that there was a great opportunity for us to solve for some of these key pain points, this persona and, their particular responsibilities. I'm going to pause really quick because I saw a couple questions. Anything that we should speak to, or are we good? Good. Okay, I do see a question about what is a service, that what we're talking about here. So one of the things that DPM does is we really focus on and align to what we call the common services data model at ServiceNow. So there's different kinds of services. And when we're talking about services, we're including, business services and technical services. So something that you might be providing internally to the business or even externally to your customers. And then technical services being more like support around like infrastructure, servers, networks, things like that. And defining the level of service that will be provided to support and maintain those types of things. And so that's how we think about it. And we can share more materials too, maybe as this is posted, about how ServiceNow talks and defines services and what we kind of consider and include in the product. And please do add additional follow-up questions because I think this is a great opportunity to get some of that clarity if we can. Okay, so I love this slide because I think it's really important to illustrate how we solve for DPM. A lot of questions that we would get when we present this content and we present the product is this replacing service portfolio management, or is this replacing application portfolio management or enterprise architecture? And the answer is no. So what DPM does is it provides a visibility layer, and it extracts or kind of like pulls data from across the platform, and it surfaces in a very specific context for this user. So for example, we include data at a strategic portfolio management. That suite of products and applications is very much tailored towards planning, road mapping, project managers or program managers, like people who are managing large bodies of work. The persona that we're serving, they're not doing those kinds of tasks. They're not managing a project from start to finish. However, there will be projects in a lot of instances that are related to or in service of something that they own. And so having visibility into what are the projects that are going on, for my service or for my application, what's the status, any missed milestones, anything at risk, anything I need to get involved with. And so that's really the approach that we took when looking at solving for this persona. What do they care about? How do we provide them with information about their services and apps across the lifecycle and really across the ServiceNow platform? And how do we surface that in a meaningful way that's in the context of what they own and what they really care about, so they can get that holistic view of their services? And then not just theirs, but all the different services and applications that are being delivered across the organization. Let's see. Can the CSM? Yeah, that's a great question. And so that is something that we're looking at doing. One thing that we did release, and I'm going to screw up the family, so maybe someone on the dev team could remind me of when we did this, but there's basically an integration that was created where you can surface different types of services. So for example, HR service delivery, they have specific records that they use to define their services. And there's a way then that you can basically integrate and view those in DPM. And so we can provide some follow-up information, but that integration framework applies also to CSM. It applies to basically any, service type record that you would leverage in other, areas of the platform. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, so what are some of the key features of digital portfolio management? Two of the main things that we wanted to do was provide not only a view of the individual services and apps, but really basically elevate the altitude of data that you're able to see and seeing things more holistically. So we have two different kinds of portfolios that we surface and visualize in DPM. One of them is personal portfolios and the other is enterprise portfolios. Personal portfolios is a way that you can, an individual, so somebody who's considered a solution owner, they can create their own portfolios of services, like business and technical services, business applications, as well as application services. They can pull those all together into a single view, and they can share that with other folks on their team, so they can have a single place to go and find all the things that they own and care about and are responsible for. The other view is the enterprise portfolio. This is something that is really a shared view across the organization. It's, hey, these are all of the services or all the applications that we provide to our organization, or to the business or externally. It's the big picture of like, this is all of our stuff, and you can organize it in different ways. And basically what we do, which is pretty cool, is we will aggregate data, or we roll data up at each level of the portfolio. So when you're looking at the top level, you get a holistic view of the performance across all of the services in a way to kind of hone in and view different areas of the portfolio and understand where you might have poorer performance or where you might have, better performance. If we go to the next one. So the other thing that was really important for us to do was to really deliver that lifecycle management. So that end-to-end view of data across the service, across the application. So you'll notice in this visual, we have these tabs: plan, build, and run. Those are representing the lifecycle. We also have a risk tab that we surface on the business application and on the application services. So you can see risk like kind of regardless of the point in the lifecycle, including GRS, like integrated risk management, and also technology portfolio risk or lifecycle risk. So we really do serve that full lifecycle of data, and we have the data organized in such a way that you can find here all the things that are related to planning, here are all the things related to build, here's all my operational data, and then we do have ways that you can create things like demands or continual improvement initiatives to then circle back into planning, to take all the data that you have and the lessons that you've learned and have that help inform your roadmap going forward. Go to the next slide. And the other key pieces is around performance analytics. So we have a lot of data that we surface. We have some like real-time or near real-time data that we call the current status or the needs attention. And then we also have data that's driven through performance analytics to give you visibility into data over time. So you can see trending and you can get a bigger picture of how well something is performing, not just today, but really in the broader context. Are we improving or are we getting worse? And so we have an integration leveraging PA and indicators, and it also provides a lot of flexibility for how you want to measure and report on your services and apps.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, for sharing why DPM is essential to solution owners across the various industries, as well as it provides them the holistic picture of their ecosystem. And now, before we move on to Isaac to share the roadmap of DPM, I'm going to launch the second poll of the day to understand which stage of implementation everybody's on. And yeah, I think the poll should be up on your screen right now. And we love to see where everybody is, if they are in the process of implementation or just are investigating right now through this webinar, so that we can help along answer a few of the more questions that are coming in from the Q&A. Okay, again, we have a strong audience who's right now investigating. Some are in the process of implementation, and there are some who have already fully rolled out to production. Okay, I'm gonna keep the poll up for a few more seconds. Okay. Thank you so much for the response. I'm gonna end the poll, keeping a time check, and okay. Thank you. And with that, over to you, Isaac.
Thanks, Nikita.
And yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about Washington, D.C., Xanadu, and then beyond into Yokohama. Beginning with Washington, D.C., our goal for that release, which is out, has been to increase the configurability of DPM and make a lot of the configuration out of the box. And in the process of that, also giving guidance to the DPM owners, the solution owners, and anyone that's an administrator that's implementing the DPM workspace. Also, with the Admin Center, that's where all of this goodness comes from. We provide more insight into relationship maps and the portfolios being managed by the solution owners. So what is in this Admin Center? You can configure, starting with phase one. We're beyond phase two now. So the history of Admin Center started with the ability to configure a services flow and accessing resources and direction to set up DPM. It's like a guided setup experience. So when you went into Admin Center, you wanted to create a service, there was a whole flow that guides you through that, tells you what information is available to you, and makes use of the entire service portfolio that you have built out. It also gives you feedback as far as, like what information is in those services and applications, and what may be usable, what might not be usable. The Admin Center also included a settings page, and this gives all of the system properties of DPM in a single location. So anything DPM would reference to show its dashboards, its KPIs in a certain way, that was now available to you. You didn't have to hunt and peck to see, well, how do I hide my planning information, and I just don't want that tab, we're not using it? Or how do I add other information to a different tab like the run tab? And it was simple configuration that we allow you now by exposing those system properties. To talk about Admin Center into Xanadu, I'm going to come back to Washington, D.C., but to talk about Admin Center further, now we've built on all of what came out in phase 1, but now the Admin Center allows you to configure a business application flow, configure an application services flow, and also includes the ability to configure the header and informational tabs of sections inside DPM. So we're really happy with the ability we give you to make and modify DPM to show and give the best referenceable information the way you want it to show. Going back, so let's go back to the Washington, D.C., that unified map. There previously was a bit of a challenge, right? Because so many customers really set up their services and applications in different ways. There can be quite a bit of flexibility and uniqueness when it comes to that. And previously, the component that was mapping this out, it couldn't solve for every possible relationship type. You're using different CIs, different use cases for that CIs, and really we couldn't surface the information if you weren't following CSDM best practices. So now with this more flexible integrated UI map, you're now able to see your relationships even if you went a little bit outside the bounds of CSDM. So now you're going to be able to see every relationship type, a full visual representation of your service maps, and that's for the uniqueness of each and everybody's implementation. So really excited about that now being more flexible and showing these extra scenarios that can come up. There was also a configuration of time zone availability that's calculated in. Previously, we were set to using the system time zone. Now, that might not be the way you want information reported on. And so we've given you different properties and different ways that you can calculate it now. And those system properties for your time zone, they apply to the reports and automatically update things like availability reporting based on commitments time zone, right? So you can get much more specific with that data. So talking about service portfolio management and wrapping that up, there's also a matrix support model. And this is where customers need to define more than one team that supports a service. There can be many teams that are needed to deliver just one single service offering, and we want now to give you the ability to show that and relay that multiple people might be responsible for this service, and you can now add teams and list that out inside service portfolio management. Going over to Xanadu, we've already talked about Admin Center, so that includes those first two bullets, also the UX and general enhancements, but we didn't talk about the KPI tooltips description. So if you're expert in platform analytics, you might know what we're getting into here. If not, it's not a big deal. But really, just to give the basic configuration of what we've done there, we have what are called indicators inside performance analytics. And I like the way Caitlin describes these indicators. They're like nesting dolls. So sometimes the calculations on DPM weren't really showing how did we get to this number. So there's like the indicator source, there's a PA indicator, and then there's the KPI group. And each one of these levels of the nesting dolls, it adds different calculations or metrics to the overall graph inside DPM. So what we're doing now to clear up any confusion as far as where did these numbers come from, the KPI tooltips, they tell you where these sources are coming from, which number and which numbers were built into that calculation. And what's nice is it's automatically generated. So you can hover over this KPI. It shows you the automatic generation of these nested layers, so to speak. And you, as an administrator, can also change the text. You can go into the administrative mode and create more the ability to modify what we've come up with as a text field, and it should be more straightforward if you have the ability to modify it. But it comes out pretty good to begin with. Now the service builder section here, we want to talk about the CSDM lifecycle field support. This is updating DPM to accommodate changes that CSDM makes. So we're very closely tied to CSDM and its best practices. So when they change something, a lot of times we have to change something. And one of the things they did is they added what's called a life cycle field. So this is the stage and status to determine the phase of a life cycle. So you could say this service is operational and in use. Okay, so those two different definitions really go into where a life cycle stage is. And now you have the ability to support that in DPM. Okay. Drafting the pre-pending service. Okay, so this one here, previously we had some really great feedback when a customer would check out an original record in Service Builder. What it would do is it would keep that record in a read-only state. And that's great because you won't want to change the original while you're making changes to a potential version 2, or so to speak. But the draft name just had the exact same name. So you could go into your service builder and you would see 2 lines that had the exact same name. Now, what we're doing here is we are defining draft in front of anybody who has a service checked out that's making modifications on it, and then no more confusion as far as which one's the original and which one's the draft. Okay, moving over to Yokohama, we've got a lot of great changes here, and this comes down to the service portfolio editing. And currently, when you're editing portfolios, it goes back to UI 16. So we're talking about the lists and the forms. A lot of people love UI 16, but really that's not been great for modifying, creating, editing services. It actually is a really great use case where we needed to come up with a better solution to that. And we want to be able to track the structure better. The ability now to do things like move a taxonomy node into another portfolio, you want to collapse or again, move that. It really was a tedious manual effort. And a lot of times something would happen like where you moved one node and the other ones didn't come along with it. So this is now a much more flexible UI. It improves the editing capability. So even things like when you want to reparent or move your taxonomy around, everything below it is going to move with it, right? All the services and offerings. So there's no longer a need to go to every single record and say, oh, yeah, that change I made, it also applied to you too, right? So there's logic now built into it to make that much easier. And just a safe harbor flash here, it's data readiness. We're essentially helping the DPM administrator get a better understanding of the data you have, and also then what you need to do with it to improve it for better service and delivery applications. Essentially, that project comes down to helping customers get their data ready for DPM. All right, we've got a couple little snapshots here. We're going to go through the next one, Nikita. This one is the Admin Center, right? Hopefully you're using it. It's been out since June, and there's also been extra versions added to it with more capabilities. So like we talked about, the Admin Center, this is where you get your guided setup. This is where you get the configuration settings, guidance that you need to go through building out your services, your applications. There's two main tabs on this, and the two main tabs are going to be overview, and that's where you kind of get those guided setups started, and then the settings, and those settings are going to give you more implementation items. Next one, let's talk about the unified CI map. So here, this is that relationship map, and it's much more flexible now and shows many more scenarios, whereas before it was a little more rigid with what we would show. And now you get a full representation of your services. And finally, just a snapshot, one of my favorite things here, the KPIs with tooltips and that automatic generation showing you which layers built up to this calculation. And of course, you can modify the text that's automatically generated. Gives your users a lot more friendly information and understanding of why a number might show a certain way. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Isaac, for walking us through the roadmap and briefly explaining the Xanadu highlights as well. Now I'm going to pass it over to Aaron so he can walk us through the Admin Center in a live ServiceNow instance. And Aaron, you can share your screen.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, let me share my screen. Cool. So this is a live instance, and so I'm going to be walking you through the Admin Center and kind of what Isaac showed that we introduced in the Xanadu. So first, how to navigate to the Admin Center. So we actually have it under the DPM module. We have the DPM Admin Center. We have an app module here. We'll start by going to the overview. So when we land on the DPM Admin Center, the overview, we're going to see the guided setup section. And this is a section that's all about getting your data ready for DPM, identifying solutions, and if it's all, well, if the data is ready, whether that mean being connected or integrated. We have a lot of very helpful tooltips explaining this. We also have this here's what you can do next section, which are additional steps you can take, not necessarily after you've done the guided setup, but I believe it's just additional steps you can take in general to get DPM ready to be used. And then what you'll also notice throughout the Admin Center is we have this helpful resources and FAQ sections. And these are going to be contextual-based resources and facts that will help you get DPM ready to use. So let's first dig into one of these guided setups. So we're going to go look at services with offerings. This is going to be your offering guided setup. So first thing, it's a kind of a step-by-step process. First thing I identify here is the different solutions. So we have 39 business services, 24 technical, and you're also going to see, more importantly, how many of these services have offerings. And because of how like the CSDM model is, how that works in DPM, it is important to have those offerings in order to surface all sorts of data inside of DPM. So going on to the next step, identifying portfolios. So here's where you can associate portfolios with your solutions. You can also see what existing portfolios you have and create net new ones. And this is kind of like an idea of how to essentially aggregate your services into a portfolio. And this is very helpful for when it comes to mapping like KPI groups and your KPI snapshots. Next, we have our access and planning it. Sorry, this is a tab. Yep. Cool. So in the access and planning item, assess and planning item. So this is the tab that's actually an integration tab with CIM. So this tab right now, we have the CIM and associated plugins installed. So we're seeing this data lit up. We're seeing how offerings related ideas and etc. We also have like the suggestions here where we can see the settings that are related to the planning items. This is really neat because if you don't actually have the necessary plugins or apps installed, there's actually messages here that will tell you, will link you to the pages, whether it be the store page or the plugin page, to either install it yourself or ask the admin to install it. So this helps kind of surface those integrations we have. This is going to be the same for SS build metrics. This is going to be another integration tab. Sorry, it's this instance was slow this morning, unfortunately. Perfect. So same thing. This is just gonna be another one. So there's other specific plugins. I won't get too much into it, but we can kind of see, different offerings related to CMs. And this is just to help you show that this data is ready to be showed in DPM. And then the next step is going to be map KPI groups. So this step is going to be, that's all right, yeah, perfect. Is going to be all about kind of initially it's going to show all the run data that you would kind of expect to be associated with service offerings. So this is more like, and when I say run data, I mean really your operational data. So this is going to be things like changes, problems, and incidents. And so this is where we show how these are rolled up into these offerings and services, and we show how it's either done directly through these certain fields and configure it, or through like impacted service FCIs. When we scroll down here, we can actually see the different KPI groups, and here we can see different ones, and we can associate them or we can create new ones. So if we actually click on create new, we'll create a brand new KPI group, and this is, or we can go and like click on, I don't know, let's see if I want to see catalog activity. I can map specific service offerings to this specific KPI group that already exists. So it really helps if you've already had experience trying to associate KPI groups. There's already a UI, but there's just a lot cleaner. And then finally, we get to the next steps. And these are, once again, kind of like a suggested next steps once you have your data ready. So collecting performance data, you need that for all your run tab information to show up. Historic data collection, we have KPI groups, portfolios, all that type of stuff that you can get to really maximize the use of DPM. So the next tab I want to go to quickly is going to be the settings tab. So we have a lot of configurations for DPM that we try to do over customizations into UIB. Customizing UIB is really helpful, but configurations make things a lot simpler for just maintaining. So first, I actually want to show off the settings are going to be organized based off of solution types. So service and offerings, business applications, application services, as well as we have settings for the portfolios and specific settings for KPI groups and DevOps. So in the service and offering properties tab, and we have kind of settings for each tab for each solution, we're going to have the ability to completely hide the tab, for example. So let me go to this. And this right now, what we're looking at is knowledge bases. And this is just a business service inside of DPM. And maybe I probably should slow down a little bit there, but we have 3 tabs now. And to kind of show how that worked again, like I'll turn it back on. So now that I'm turning it on, we should see the plan tab appear again. So it's just like a really easy way to be able to configure what tabs you want to show up for each solution type. But we can also be more granular on determining which sections. So for example, I don't want to see demands. I can click this and go here. Or now I'll just kind of show that real fast. And yeah, so we'll see we have a summary and no more demands. It is gone. So, and this is the case for all of these solution items as well. So not just services and offerings. So the other cool feature that we actually specifically introduced in this Xanadu release is going to be configuration of the headers. So we have the solution headers, and there are these right here. So these like kind of top bar underneath the solution itself. And here, if we click on the configure button, let's wait. So what we should, I'll kind of show it. I should have enough time to show it. what this is going to look like. Like I said, sorry about this slow instance. Yeah, so here we kind of show the fields that are already appearing. We can add more. So let me just add one real fast to kind of show what this process looks like. It's pretty simple. You're limited to the rows or the, the columns or fields that exist on the table. So can't do anything like with scripting, but it can be anything on there. Sorry. Maybe I will, for the sake of time. Let's see. Here, maybe in the meantime, while this loads, I can kind of show something else real fast. Actually, so let me cancel. All right, so I'll show that in a second, but let me kind of just continue showing the rest of the settings. So here in the settings tab, we also have like our KPI group properties. I think the whole that gives a minute. So maybe I'll just talk to it while this loads. Oh, here, perfect. So the KPI group properties are going to be properties like latest score, as well as process mining frequency. So this is with our process mining integration. And then finally, the last section here is going to be the DevOps properties. And this is going to be to enable or disable the DevOps integration if you have DevOps installed. So let me go here. Perfect. So this is loaded now. So we can choose. So this is like if I'm trying to add a header to services specifically. So let's say if I just want to add a number. You can choose your numbers, your order. So this determines where it shows up. So let's go back to DPM. And now what we'll see, you can see how we configured it to have the BSN number show up in front now. In addition to headers, we can also configure the info tab. So for the info tab, we have a very similar flow where we have the service info and offering general info. So to show what I mean by that is when you go to the info tab, and when we go to, let's see, the general info, sorry, probably should click this. Yeah, when we go to the general info, you're going to see we have this section right here. And this section is all the general info, and now this is configurable as well, and it's done in a similar way using this kind of formula, or I would say this pattern. Yeah, and finally, the last couple of things to show would be, and I probably should have focused on this, kind of something I passed, but in the most recent Xanadu release, we also did introduce these business application service flows. And these flows are very similar to that over to the service offering and services flow. Kind of went through it, but just know that in the newest version of DPM, we have these flows now to help you guide you in your setup of business applications and application services. Cool. With that, I know that was kind of a quick demo, but with that, I will hand off, I believe, to you, Shubham, to kind of show off the rest.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Let me quickly share my screen. I hope you can all see my screen. So, okay, I'll keep it quick. The next feature that I'm going to talk about is basically the unified CI map. I saw a couple of questions earlier in the chat talking about dependencies between services and applications. So what we're doing here is to present you a holistic and a comprehensive view of all your services and application relationships. Any user having a DPM manager role can access the unified CI map from any of their services or application pages, or they can access it through some of the links on the homepage as well. What we've done is we have replaced the existing DPM relationship map with this new unified CI map based on a ton of different feedback that we receive on the map itself. So what the unified CI maps have done is that they've added a layer of details for each of the individual CIs, along with showcasing all the different relationships. Now, I'll just quickly go into it. So right now, what you're looking at is the business application, IT service management, you can quickly go into view relationships, and here you will see basically the integrated node map view. The unified map kind of provides you larger control over each node in the map, and as a default, it starts at 2 levels. And when you dig into a particular CI, what you're able to see is the first thing is the summary, which basically gives you all the information for the particular selected CI. Something new that we have incorporated here is we've pulled in from the existing relationship map is the contacts tab. So we've added this where you can see all the contacts info for the team or the team members for the selected CI. We've also pulled in the current issues tab. This is from the original DPM map. This works for the CIs that are integrated to DPM. That is the business applications, application services, and it's kind of aligned with the needs attention feature. So it provides consistency between what we see in the DPM needs attention and what's in the current issues of the unified CI map. I know I kind of breezed through it, but that was like a quick overview of what the unified CI map feature does. The next and the last one that I'm going to talk to you about is the KPI tooltips that we have introduced with the Xanadu release. So all users having the DPM admin role can view and modify this automatically populated description field for each of the KPI records. So basically what the team did here is they created a script that would build the description based on the indicator source, and other information related to the KPI. Users having DPM manager role can view the KPI descriptions in the workspace as well. Now, if I can just quickly deep dive here, we are looking at a KPI record where, say, for example, the KPI is called availability. You see a new description field has been added with this feature with the automatically created description for the indicator. The way it has been crafted is it begins with the name of the KPI. It shows whether the KPI is showing the latest score versus if it's giving you the average or the sum. It also provides information about the KPI source, the indicator source, and finally it provides kind of a complete picture of what is driving the end results that the user is viewing. So for each of the KPI records, you will basically see an icon here, which when you click on, you'll be able to see the automatically generated tooltip. So that was like a quick rundown of what this feature does. That's it from my end. Over to you, Nikita.
Thank you so much, Shubham. I'm just gonna share my screen. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Shubham, and Aaron for covering the unified map, KPI tooltips, and giving an overview of the Admin Center to everyone. I think we're pretty close to the time, and we're gonna do a quick round of any Q&A. Any questions that are there, please put it in the Q&A, and we'll be happy to answer it live right now. And we do have multiple resources which you can access even after the session to get to know more about DPM. We've just launched our DPM Community Hub as well, where you can ask your questions on the DPM Community Forum, and you can get it answered by us or by other customers who have already implemented DPM. And you'll also get useful getting started articles, any FAQs that you have, and you'll also get updated about any upcoming events that we have planned for this year, next year, and so on. And if you have any case tasks that you have related to your DPM instance, please raise them using the Now support link. And we also had DPM office hours this year from June to August, the recordings of which are also available on the DPM events page. So in those office hours, we covered pretty much everything from Service Builder, from DPM, and also from Admin Center, and as well as any other questions that usually the customers had regarding the implementation of DPM. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me or my team for any further questions that you may have for